We're going to jump into the webinar this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who will be accessing the recording afterwards, please let us know if you have any questions after you're done reviewing the recording. All right. So today's session is on succeeding academically at Western. Before we begin, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Francesca Mancuso Silva, and I work here at Western International with a fantastic team of colleagues. On your screen, you'll see all of my colleagues in the International Student Services team. On our team, we have a great group of international student advisors and program coordinators who are here to support you throughout your journey here at Western. So for today, the agenda, basically what we'll cover is, first and foremost, want to give you as much information as we can around resources to help you succeed academically. That includes not just pointing you to, the services that exist on campus. We'll definitely do that, but we'll also cover some sort of unwritten rules of the Canadian classroom, a little bit about student life in Canada, things that you may or may not know being new students. We'll talk about some common challenges we see often with international students in their first term, especially. And again, we'll end off with taking you through some of the really robust support services here at Western. We all want you to succeed. And so the more you know about it in advance, these are services that we hope you utilize before before your assignments are due, before exam time, get used to using them in advance of when you really need them, maybe. Okay. We'll talk a little bit at the end also about navigating Western accounts. So it can be confusing, the HR system or Brightspace, things like that. Student Center, we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. We'll give you some tips from upper year students. We ask them to, provide some of their firsthand experience and then tips to help you succeed academically. So we'll share that at the end. And then once all of that sort of succeeding academically in Canada sort of context is done, my colleague Heidi will talk to you about some important immigration reminders. So if you're an exchange student, not here on a study permit, you can skip that last part of the presentation. But if you're an international student here on a study permit, especially, you'll want to stay for that last bit. So we have a lot to cover. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, we encourage you to use the Q&A function at the end of the screen. You can submit your question at any time during the presentation. Our colleagues will be happy to answer them and also answer some live questions at the end of the webinar. Okay. So first things first, I know you may have heard about the term culture shock. So when you are going to a new culture, a new place, people are often familiar with the term culture shock, but less so familiar with the term learning shock, which is similar and related, but not the same. So learning shock goes beyond the culture shock and language shock and refers to experiences acute frustration, confusion, anxiety, oftentimes happening when students find themselves in unfamiliar learning environments, having to adapt to different teaching methods. Maybe there's some confusion around unexpected or disorienting cues, rules. Maybe it's ambiguous in terms of you're not really quite clear on what's expected of you. Maybe there's conflicting information, and that can also lead to learning shock. And so here at Western International, part of the goal of this session is to sort of get ahead of that, give you some insider tips and tricks before this happens, as you're starting your new term, to have all the information you need to be feeling confident. But regardless, we'll try and give you all the information you need, but there's still may be some times where you feel this way and learning shock sets in. And so again, that's sort of the point of this slide too, is that this is a normal process and you'll navigate through it with our support and with the support of colleagues across campus. All right. So first things first, before we get into the details, I want to remind you that self-compassion is key. Give yourself grace as you're navigating, especially this first term at Western and the first month or the first few weeks. Classes might be different than you're used to. Teaching styles will be different. Perhaps assessment styles will be different. So if things don't go exactly how you imagine they would, if you were a really high performing student in high school or in your undergraduate degree somewhere else, that might not translate in your first few weeks here at Western, and that again is normal. So give yourself some grace. We also want to remind you that wellness comes first. You come first. So taking care of your physical and mental health is really directly related to how successful you will be academically. So lots of research connecting, number of hours of sleep to your capacity to learn and retain information. So this is important, especially important during exam time when students might feel some anxiety about performing well on exams, and you might think, okay, I'm going to stay up all night to study. Well, you're actually doing yourself a disservice. Even though you won't have the same amount of time to review the material, sleeping is actually the research says more useful to you at that point at the 11th hour. Sleeping is more useful to you in terms of doing well on your exams and problem solving and understanding questions. If you don't sleep and you stay up all night to study, it can affect your learning and recall and ability to really understand the questions being posed of you. Sometimes we can get, especially in the winter term that you're starting in, we can get really insular and, staying indoors all the time, really focused on our academics, but it's important to also take some time to get out in fresh air. I know it's cold and snowy, especially today, but even 5 minutes in nature has been shown to really reset a person's focus and attention and ability to learn as well. Hydration similarly has been linked to GPAs in the research. So something as simple as staying hydrated with water throughout the day, it can be easy to forget. The research shows that the more water you drink, the more well hydrated you are, has been linked to higher GPAs. Loneliness and isolation can set in, especially in the winter term. Again, people are staying indoors a little bit more often. And so it's really important, even though you're focused on your academics, to make time to engage socially with others. Come to Global Cafe and, join a club, go to the gym, see other people. And again, that has been linked to higher scholastic success overall. And then, as your mother or father would tell you, eating well is also super important, affects your capacity, again, to learn, to focus, and to really have the energy you need and the stamina you need to engage in challenging tasks, whether they be mental or physical. Overall, students engaged in university life, overall, not just academics, but also the social pieces, are more likely to succeed academically and report more satisfaction and are more likely ultimately to graduate. So that's all important, sort of first things first. We'll get that out of the way. So navigating the Canadian classroom, we want to give you some tips here. So Canadian classrooms, as you may have noticed already, it's sort of day two in your classes. Canadian classrooms are not passive learning environments generally. So critical thinking, creativity, the synthesis are required. You'll notice that in your assignments and your exams, that the questions typically are not pure recall. Professors are really looking for, do you understand the material in a wholesome way? Can you engage with the material in a wholesome way? So it's not just recall. That's very important to know. Independence, self-direction, and initiatives are also key values in the Canadian classroom. With only a very few exceptions, professors really are not taking attendance. Generally, they're not chasing after you if you're not in class, or if they see you, on social media or watching a show on your laptop in class. They're not really going to address that with you. The idea is that you're all adults and that you've come to university with the intention to learn. And so your sort of the expectation is that you're going to be self-directed, independent in your learning, ask for help when you need it. Otherwise, they're not going to sort of be holding your hand. This is true for all students. Assessments might be different from what you're used to. So again, I mentioned the focus is on comprehension, not just recall. Grading can be based on tests, assignments, and in some cases, participation. So if you have a lab or a tutorial or things like that, make sure that you're looking at your syllabus. If anything is unclear, it should have a breakdown of where your grades are coming from. You don't want to be surprised at the end of the year that, there was a grade for participation and you never went to tutorial, for example. Important to know because in other learning environments, other countries, other systems, it's common practice to be able to retake exams or resubmit assignments. Again, in general, that's not the case here in the Canadian classroom. The exam is scheduled for one day. You're expected to show up on that day, write the exam, and there's really no opportunity for retakes so much. Repeats or seeking out and accessing support early is expected and normalized. So even students who have been in the Canadian learning system since childhood, they will tell you they'll join university and access these supports and services. It's not just for newcomers. It's not just for students who are struggling. It's for all students. And sort of the norm here in Canada is that if there are supports and services that I can access to give me an advantage, to make it more likely for me to succeed, I'm going to access that early and often. And so we want you to sort of jump in with that idea. And so we'll look at what are these supports that you should be looking at. In terms of classroom norms, I put it there. Sometimes we get questions from international students about, I keep sitting in class and I've noticed this weird thing that, people will file into the classroom and leave, one seat or two seats in between me and them. Why do they do that? Is it something about me? Do they not want to, interact with me? Is it unfriendliness or what is it? Really, it's just we have a norm around personal space. Here in Canada, of course, we have lots of space and relatively fewer people. So we like to take as much space as we can. So you'll notice it in classes on the bus that students will take a seat unless they know the person that they're sitting with, they'll sit together. But if they don't know a person, they'll leave some space. So it's nothing about you. In terms of talking, obviously you're not talking in class. while your professor is talking. That goes without saying. If there's an invitation to debate or talk amongst yourselves, your teacher or your professor will say so. Otherwise, we're being silent. If you need to take a phone call, take it outside, these type of things. Most classrooms will allow you to have snacks or to eat or drink during class times. My tip is that you open any packaging before the class starts so that you're not making noise in a completely silent classroom. You'll see people turning around and looking at you if you draw too much attention. Make sure you also take your garbage out at the end of class. There's a poll that would have popped up on your screen. Let us know who you are, graduate student, exchange student, undergraduate student. Perfect. That'll stay up until the end of the webinar. Again, a reminder, if you have any questions about anything that I'm talking about, or if you've noticed anything in your classrooms in the first couple days that you're curious about, pop it in the Q&A and we'll talk about it. Other things you should know. So the level of formality varies depending on the professor. Some professors like to be addressed as, for example, Dr. Johnson. Some professors are more informal and they say, you know, just call me Bob or just call me Jen or whatever. This suggestion here is to really look at their email signature. That can provide clues. So if you email your prof, always err on the side of caution and go more formally. So, dear Dr. Johnson, I have this question. And then when they reply to you, depending on what their preference is, they'll either reply, you know, sincerely Dr. Johnson or sincerely Bob. And that can give you a clue as to level of formality. But overall, regardless of what a professor prefers in terms of how you address them, professor's role here in Canada is not viewed as just the expert, that you're only consuming expert knowledge. That's not really the mentality here. Asking questions, challenging ideas is highly encouraged. Discussions involve turn taking, respectful debate. And so we're not talking over one another, but definitely taking turns and sharing your diverse perspectives. As international students, you have something unique to share. You have a different worldview. You have different experiences than your sort of domestic colleagues. And so make sure to bring that to the table when there's opportunities to engage with your classmates, engage with your professor. Remember that feedback and criticism are tools to help you grow. So I'm going to sort of explain, if you haven't heard about it, the sandwich model of feedback, because this can be confusing if it's not something you're used to. Canadians in general can be direct in their feedback, but also our politeness as a value sometimes muddies the waters and can make it unclear. Is this person complimenting me or criticizing me? And the reason sometimes you're left with that feeling of like, I'm not really sure how to interpret what my professor just said or what my TA just said, is because they may present it in this sort of sandwich format. So the sandwich model of feedback goes something like this. Lisa, you did an amazing job at the introduction of your paper. I really felt like I was excited to, read the rest of the paper. And then the middle of part of the sandwich is sort of, but, I got lost a bit in the middle because it wasn't clear as to the argument you're making and blah, blah, blah. And they, might give some constructive feedback there in the middle. And then at the end of their feedback, they'll sort of still end off with, but you did an amazing job and keep up with the good work. So you might sort of walk away thinking, okay, so do I have something to improve on or not? because there was some good bits in there. And so what I'm encouraging you to do is really center in on that middle part. That's where the criticism is, and that's meant to help you grow. So keep an ear out for them when you're interacting with your professors, with your TAs. Often international students or students in general like to show appreciation if they have a particularly, um, friendly or understanding professor or somebody who's helped them along the way, even a supervisor. If you're a grad student, you might be tempted to give them a gift. We generally, in general, kind of hazard against giving gifts because they can send the wrong message. Sometimes it can be interpreted as, the student is trying to give you a gift so that they can get a better grade on their next assignment or something like that. And you don't want to be misinterpreted. So the best thing to do if you want to show appreciation is a sincere email or a card. That's more than enough and would be appreciated. Remember, each classroom and professor are unique. So if at any time rules or expectations are unclear, just ask. Okay. You can always pull the, I'm new here card and say, I'm just a little unclear about this or that. Can you explain it to me? Can you clarify? Okay. That's always okay. Student life in Canada. In general, and I mentioned it sort of generally a few slides ago, here in North America and Canada, especially at Western, students are encouraged to have sort of a well-rounded student experience. So we're encouraging students to consider not only what are my academic interests, but also what are my social interests and how can I explore those in my time at university. It's not just about academics, but also the social piece. What skills do I need to improve if I'm, looking to work in a particular industry, or if I'm interested in building skills, even soft skills, communication skills, problem solving, leadership. What skills do I need to improve, and how can I do that both within the classroom setting and also outside? And then lastly, from year one until graduation, whether you're an undergraduate student or a graduate student, we really are encouraging students to think early and often about, their career trajectory. Where do you hope to work after graduation? What do you hope to do? How can I connect my passions with a fulfilling career? And what are the options? And really using your time in university, especially at Western, to explore them. So kind of think of your experience in that holistic way as well. So successful students ask questions, as I said, seek support early and often, make use of campus services. Easier said than done, but balance social and academic goals, plan for the future, and then engage in skill building. One way you can start to think about this sort of idea of holistic skill building is by using this resource called the Hidden Curriculum. It's a cross-institution, cross-disciplinary tool online that you can explore. It breaks down sort of skill building in 5 key areas that, again, working through modules, seeing where you lack skills or where you maybe can improve during your time at West or in university in general, before and after graduation. So it's something to explore. Take a look at all the modules. It's self-paced, so you can do it on your own time. But before things get busy with classes and exams and papers and assignments, just poke around that website and see if it might be useful to you. Okay. Well, some of the common international student challenges that we see. We often see this thing called the February crash. So in January, especially it's your first term, you're just starting, there's a bit of a honeymoon phase. Everything's, new, exciting. Maybe you're exploring the city, maybe you're meeting new people, attending events, orientation, and everything's going well. But come February or sixth month, this crash happened. So up until now, you've been coasting, but now you see that maybe your old study habits, what worked for you back home, is not working anymore or is not working as well at Western. That can cause you to be a little bit reactive, getting overwhelmed, upset about the situation. That, learning shock, culture shock can set in. You might be feeling also a little bit of homesickness, and that can affect your academic performance. Absolutely. You might get sidetracked. You're in a new place with new distractions. Maybe you're living independently for the first time in a long time or first time ever. So you have this newfound sort of, I can do whatever I want, anytime I want, and you're maybe finding it hard to manage your time appropriately. There's also, high expectations, perhaps high expectations from your family back home who are asking, how is it going? Are you doing well? Or high expectations, again, of yourself. And that can cause you to be a little bit too rigid. I need to study 12 hours a day, or I need to, seek perfection in all that I do. And that leads to that February crash. Other common challenges that can kind of contribute to that crash, you might have difficulty, with listening or reading speed. A suggestion would be to record your lectures. I put there with permission. So most professors won't have an issue with you recording them speaking during a lecture, as long as you're using it only for personal purposes and not posting it anywhere. Recording is really helpful because you can slow down or speed up the pace of the lecture depending on, what you're comfortable with. In terms of reading speed, there are resources I'll talk about in a minute from Learning Development and Success to help you sort of improve your speed reading skills. So there's things that can help you. In terms of language barriers, sometimes, you're here at Western learning in English. Could be your first language, could be your second language. Even if you have a really good grasp of the English language academically, you might have faced language barriers in terms of conversational English. So don't be afraid to ask for clarification, repetition, somebody to explain things a different way. Sometimes here we don't realize how many acronyms, short forms, slang terms we use. And so unless you speak up and say, oh, I don't, quite understand that, people will assume that you are understanding. So don't let that go on. Don't be afraid to ask for clarification when you need it. You might be missing background knowledge. So if a professor, for example, is referring to some well-known news article or pop culture reference that perhaps the domestic students are very familiar with, but you are not familiar with it, again, don't be afraid to ask. One of the ways that you can sort of get some of the more background information, pop culture references, slang practice is by participating in our programs here at Western International. So we have the English Conversation Program and Global Cafe, and we'll talk about a little bit of those later, and I'm sure you've heard about them at Welcome Center as well. Again, there could be assessment differences. So be clear about the expectations in advance. Look at your syllabus and or schedule a meeting with your professor or supervisor if you're a grad student. Make sure that you know the expectations in advance. You don't want to be caught in a situation where you're assuming what is expected of you or what is not. And then, you're going to find yourself in conflict with your professor or supervisor down the road. Okay. So at this point, we're going to go through some of the major resources for success, and we're actually going to pop in the websites of our campus partners and poke around and see what's available to you. You may have done this on your own, but I hope to sort of take you through some lesser known resources, and so that you have an idea of what is available to you when and if you should need it. Again, this webinar will be recorded, so you can go back to this at any time. All right, so for program-specific academic advice, in terms of I want to change my major or minor, I want to change courses. I'm not sure if you're a graduate student, I'm not sure about my research specific question, or if you're in a thesis-based or course-based master's or PhD, you might have questions about your specific program. Those questions should be directed at your academic counselor at the undergraduate level, and or your supervisor or your graduate chair at the graduate level. If you have trouble navigating that, we encourage you to speak with an international student advisor at our office, and they can help you navigate sort of the systems and find out exactly who you should be talking to. All right. So there are services for everything, and this is sort of a overview of what we'll dive into today. In terms of improving learning, reading, and note-taking, that's learning development and success is area. Strengthening academic writing, we have a writing support center. Researching and referencing support through Western libraries. If you have ever an issue with a university-related conflict or offense, we'll talk about what to do in that situation, but you'll definitely connect with the Office of the Ombudsperson. If you're a graduate student and you will be TAing or RAing, especially TAing or teaching in any capacity, you'll want to make use of the Center for Teaching and Learning. SGPS is also a good resource for graduate students and the Grad Life office as well. And career development and job searching is the job of career education. So we'll go into each of those specifically. And again, if you have any trouble or need referrals, any of these on-campus supports, if you need help sort of navigating cultural differences as you go, also here at Western International, we hope to be your home away from home. Our international student advisors are here to support you. So learning, development, and success. What they offer is resources and supports to help students strengthen those skills in that wheel that you see. They can help with understanding your course expectations, learning from your textbooks or other readings, even how to talk to your professor, or, gaining confidence in participating in class, developing good study strategies if that's an area that you need support in, balancing your academic work with self-care, and things like time management, resource organization, habit creation, note-taking, all of those things. And effective and efficient learning at the post-secondary level. So if this is first time learning at the post-secondary level, or if you're still thinking that you need some support with that skill building, definitely learning, development, and success is a place to go. So how can you access their support? They have presentations that are available live and recordings online. They have mindfulness programs. They have Learn to Learn or Learn to Thrive programs, depending on if you're undergraduate or graduate students. They can provide course help at the PAL Center, so the Peer Assisted Learning Center, and that's for undergraduate students only. But they also host PhDs and master's planning groups, They have a newsletter for graduate students with tips and tricks that you'll find useful. And then they have a lot of skill building handouts, online resources. You also can book a confidential learning appointment with one of their staff. So let's take a look. So if you go to their website, you'll see this is their landing page. What I'm going to direct you to is the tab that says information for. So you'll see these first three are where you want to land depending on your status. So if you go to information for first year students, you'll see that depending on the season, right now we're on fall and winter, so you'll get information about that PAL Assisted Learning Center, access or a link to their presentations, a link to individual appointments, and mindfulness supports. If you go to information for international students, you can read a little bit more about what their service offers. It's confidential. Is it free? Yes and yes. But here at the end of this page, there's a really good resource. It's Academic Success for International Undergraduate Students series, and they have it on their YouTube channel. So if you have time, it's a great resource from the experts in terms of, succeeding in the Canadian classroom. Okay. They also have a section for graduate students specifically. So it linked to the grad newsletter that I mentioned, presentations, and recorded learning webinars and videos, things to help you with time management. So as graduate students, it often you have more flexibility in your schedule, and that can be both a blessing and a curse. So if you need some more structure to your day, some of those time management tools might be useful for you. All right, we'll go back. Writing Support Center, as mentioned, really provides assistance for writers at all levels, whether you're an undergraduate student, graduate student, if you have experience writing, or if you are kind of new to essay exams or academic writing in general. Regardless of your skill level, at any stage of the writing process, the Writing Support Center is available to help you. So understanding and meeting writing expectations at the university level, building confidence in writing and communicating your ideas clearly, critical analysis abilities. They can walk you through, arguments if you have to have a persuasive essay, for example, oral presentations, including written content for slides or slide design, making sure that that's all clear and concise, and skill building to navigate academic transition. You're going from undergraduate to a graduate degree, the expectations on your writing are a little bit different. You can access Writing Center support either one-on-one with appointments. They have writing support at Weldon Library as a drop-in basis. They have seminars and workshops throughout the year, online writing assistance. They have lots of resources on their website, presentation help, tips and tricks as well. Grad Night is a series of seminars and a conference for grad and postdoc students. There's a writer's retreat for PhD students, as well as a student writing advisor program. So let's take a look at that. So for the Writing Support Center, the easiest way to navigate, if you're an undergraduate student, just click there, and it'll take you to all the links for one-on-one appointments, writing assistance, presentation help, resources. The Writing at University modules, I want to touch on a little bit here. So if you go there, this is a great resource if you're new to university writing, or if you just are a little bit nervous being in Canada or being at Western, what's expected, how to get started, commonly mistaken words, even how to write emails, conciseness, there's lots of great they're very short videos that can really improve your writing. Similarly, if you click on grads and postdocs, they'll take you to the link for one-on-one appointments, online writing assistance, all of that. So if you go to the writing support at Weldon, it'll give you the hours, Monday to Friday afternoons. I think the hours have not been updated yet for this term, but yeah, those are the two places that I wanted to highlight on the writing support side. All right. Again, reminder, if any questions, pop them into the Q&A. Libraries. Libraries at Western are one of my favorite places. So there's a number of libraries, some bigger, some smaller. Here at Western, you have access to all of the libraries, even the libraries at our affiliated campuses, so Huron and Kings. You can walk into any library, use the computers, obviously use the resources within the library. But Western Libraries offers more than just, the technology or databases and books and stuff that you associate with the library. They can also help with research and research planning. So choosing a research question, searching key databases, how do you do that? Course readings, colored articles, resources by subject. They can help you narrow down some of those search terms so that you find better resources faster, that you're not spending so much time doing that. A big piece is helping you sort of learn to evaluate the quality of your sources. And then a big piece is citation styles and citing unique and unusual sources. So again, depending on where you're coming from, the expectation to cite or give credit if when you're using somebody else's ideas in your papers or research summaries, whatever it is, if you're using information or ideas that should be attributed to somebody else, it's something that you read in an article or in a book, you need to cite it properly. Otherwise, it's considered a academic offense. So academic integrity at Western is taken very seriously. So if a professor notices that you're, using somebody else's ideas or taking full sentences about out of some other paper in your work and not citing that properly, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, whether you're at an undergraduate level or a graduate level. So it's very important that you're clear on the expectations of citing and citation styles. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we go to the website. Also, if you don't know about it already, the library offers interlibrary loans. So if there's any resource book, especially that is available at any Canadian university, no matter where it is, they can request it on your behalf in an interlibrary loan and request it to come to campus for you to use, which is great. Especially if you're a graduate student, for example, who is researching maybe more obscure topic or something very specific that we don't have the resource on, you can request it from another library. So Western Libraries offers Ask the Librarian sort of chat feature on their website. You can book a consultation with a librarian. You can get drop-in research support at Weldon Library. There's virtual web workshops, videos, and how-tos on their website. There's research and citation guides I'll show you in a second. Again, you have your library computers. There's study spaces that you can book either for yourself or with peers that you want to study in silence with, or if you have a group project, you can book those study spaces. And then relatively new is a service sort of to rent equipment at the library. So chargers, things like chargers or headphones or things like that. And also wireless and mobile printing services. So let's take a look at that. So this is the Western Libraries website. You'll see that on the side, there's the Ask a Librarian feature. You'll click on that and it'll say, so today the chat is open 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. They'll also give you hours for all the libraries on campus, and you could click all hours to find out, what's going on this week, next week. Hours change with there's breaks. So, for example, during reading week, or if the university is closed at Easter, for example, there'll be changes to the schedule. So keep an eye out on that. Of course, the catalog is the most used feature if you're looking for articles, books, or journals. But I'm going to point out one area. So research support, if you click on there, this is a great resource on the library's website, especially this videos and how-tos. If you're new to using university level libraries or these libraries here at Western, click on the videos and how-to. It'll take you through, again, a series of short videos, how to find journal articles, how to read a scholarly article, how to find books in the library. There's a whole sort of science of finding books, and using the call numbers are on the back of that book. So if that's anything new to you, definitely these videos are going to be helpful. And then they have a whole section on citing and writing. If you go back, you'll also see research guides. So depending on what your area of study is, you can poke around there and find a research guide for your study. And then citing and writing, there's citation guides here. So for example, depending on your area of study, might be customary to use APA style. Other areas of study use MLA style. Again, if you're unfamiliar, you can click on that and get resources to help you through learning about the citation style that is expected of you for a particular assignment or course. Back. Office of the Ombudsperson. So it's a confidential, importantly, impartial and independent office that is this for students at Western. You would use the Office of the Ombudsperson to determine your options if you're ever faced with a university-related problem or concern. They can help with explaining relevant Western policies and procedures in a confidential way, giving students the tools to advocate for themselves. So if you're having a conflict for whatever reason with your professor, with your supervisor, they can sit down with you, give you some advice and tools to help you navigate the situation. Conflict management strategies, if that's what you need at the time. They can also help with evaluating the fairness of a decision. So whether that be an academic or non-academic offense that you've been accused of. So for example, if you've been accused of plagiarism, you maybe didn't cite something correctly, or if you submitted work that wasn't your own, for example. As mentioned, we take academic integrity very seriously at the university. So if you've been accused of, academic dishonesty, or potentially if you're living in residence and there's an issue with a student code of conduct issue, and you think, I was unfairly accused of this, you can talk to the Office of the Ombudsperson. Ultimately, they'll help with discussing next steps, depending on your situation. How can you access support? You can all call or email the office. You can complete an online appointment request. We'll check that out next. And then they have, again, some online resources about appeals, conduct, academic integrity, conflict. So again, instead of waiting for or ignoring it till maybe a situation comes up, it's good to get ahead of it and know the expectations. So let's take a look. So this is the Office of the Ombudsperson website. And you'll see under Get Help what they help with. So you might believe an assignment was not graded fairly, you received a poor evaluation, you've been asked to withdraw scholastic offenses, maybe something under the residence contract. So you have some options, but they provide resources here to start with, right? So a resource on appealing, if you have grounds to appeal, you want to review the codes of conduct if you haven't already, to know what's expected of you. They have a whole section on academic integrity. So there's a plagiarism guide, cheating, plagiarism, unauthorized collaboration. Again, if it's worth looking at just to make sure that you are clear about the expectations here at Western. Okay. In terms of contact us, you'll see that you can schedule an appointment online, you can call or email. This is all confidential, and they're working for students, not for the university. It's an impartial service. Okay. All right. Moving right along. As mentioned earlier, again, we want you to start thinking about your career aspirations early and often in your journey here at Western. So career education is the office that helps with that. They can help with self-exploration and career assessments. So what am I good at? What am I passionate about? They have some tools to help you kind of explore the options. They also can help with career planning, goal setting, job searching, interview preparation. They do mock interviews, application document support, so including CVs, resumes, cover letters. I'll show you on their website where they have sort of sample CVs and modules around, creating the best CV or the most impressive CV or resume to get you to your goal. They also have networking events with employers, alumni, could be in person or online. And then they also provide information about navigating the Canadian job market, customs expectations, and the processes you should know about. How to access support. So you can book a career appointment one-on-one. You can explore their resources online. You can attend career events and workshops. Get feedback on your documents, not only in person, but also virtually. They have that option. You can book a mock interview, use their connect.uo.ca service to view job postings, career events, other activities. And then most recently, they offer a service of free sort of headshots, professional headshots. It's called the Iris booth, and it's a photo taking booth, but it's specifically meant for professional photos for for example, a LinkedIn profile or business endeavors. Okay, let's take a look at that. So similar to the Learning Development Success website, they organize it by information for. So you'll see a section for graduate students and postdocs, international students. So let's see the graduate students and postdocs. They're linking to graduate student internships, e-resume help, Own Your Future, which is a professional development program for PhDs. Lots of resources there. You can also click on international students. So how can a career education help me? Can you help with application documents, cover letter, CV? Links to all of that information. You can watch our Canadian Career Realities workshop online as a recording. Lots of resources there. And when you're ready, you go to the Take Action tab here, and it'll give you links about meeting with a career coach, attending workshops, this type of thing. Also under resources, lots of, as I said, assessments that you do to help you in that initial exploration of, where do I want to be post-graduation. A great area is this job searching. They talk about, 80% of your time is the hidden job market, and 20% of your time is looking at actual job boards. So the hidden job market is a huge thing here in Canada. Really, most people, 80% of the time, actually end up getting employed or getting considered for employment if they know somebody. That networking skill is very, very important. Other other resources in terms of the resumes, CVs, and cover letters. They have workshops that you can watch online, e-advising. Just send in your resume or cover letter for feedback, and they'll send it back within 5 to 7 days. This is all free. And they have strategies for each type of resume that you might be asked for, as well as some samples. Excuse me. Samples of a cover letter, basics of a CV, all really useful documents, especially if you're trying to work here in Canada while you're here. For those of you who are graduate students, a Graduate Student Life website is really was designed to really bring together all of the resources that could be useful for graduate students as they navigate graduate student life here at Western. So they aim to provide comprehensive, accessible, up-to-date information on the services and supports available. They cover not only the services and supports, but also opportunities for social connection, professional and career development, academic learning, health, wellness, and well-being. You can access support through Graduate Student Life by booking an appointment with the program specialist one-on-one. Some of you might have already met her. Her name is Megan O'Hara. You can also speak with Megan about your experiences on a number of different topics, transitioning into an undergraduate school, academic school setting, and all of the. Let's take a look at that. So this is a Graduate Student Life website. It is organized depending on what you're looking for. So you can click in on any of those. But under community, you'll find, for example, there's tabs for orientation, social life, getting involved, leadership programming, campus clubs, working on campus, all of that. So if you click on orientation, again, you probably have already seen this, but it includes some of that grad life orientation, the resource fair that happened today, and then our orientation, a link to Western International's orientation that happens until the end of the month. Okay. In terms of grad life coaching, if you want to connect with Megan, you'll see the instructions for logging into Western Connect and booking an appointment directly with Megan there. SGPS, you're all familiar with if you're a graduate student. comprehensive resources on graduate and postdoctoral matters. Oops. Whoops. Oh, I don't know. Okay. There we go. They can help with supporting you in your career development, diverse career path, thinking about that. SGPS partners with many student support units across campus to make sure that all graduate students across the board are well supported. Also, they help with Western thesis or dissertation supports. They provide a thesis guide on their website, and we'll take a look about that in a second. Through SBS, you can find contact information for your specific graduate program online, accessing the necessary forms to audit a course, enroll in a course outside of your program, review the supervision handbooks for graduate students, use the thesis guide to plan your thesis. There's also a blog called The Wire that SGPS puts out. And then they also have an Inspiring Minds showcase that you'll hear more about later in the term. So let's take a look. Here we go. The biggest thing here is, so under About Us, if you go to Program Contacts, if you're ever not sure who you should be talking to in your program, all the graduate chairs and graduate assistants are listed here. Okay. Here in Life and Community is also a great section on, studying, play, and planning, connecting, self-care. You click on each one of those to find out more information. So there's academic integrity models and a link to that. You'll need to do that within your first month, I believe. If not term at Western, you'll need to complete that. So back. And finally, the Center for Teaching and Learning. So if you're a graduate student who is going to be teaching at the university level in your capacity as a teacher this term or next term or sometime in your journey here at Western, you'll want to engage with the Center for Teaching and Learning. They'll help you prepare for your role as a TA or future instructor. There's professional development opportunities to enhance your facilitation, leadership, mentorship abilities. Also, skill building with respect to communication and presenting complex ideas. Learning about research supported innovations in teaching. They're right now doing a whole series on, AI and teaching, which is really interesting. So all of that and developing competencies that employers value that you can add to your resume. So how you can access support, review the Being a Teaching Assistant information online, join the mailing list. There's a complete TA e-learning series, a series of asynchronous modules. So if you are going to be a TA, that's a great resource. You want to consider participating in some of their programs, TA training programs, teaching mentorship program, Future Prof, and we'll look at all of these on their website. But basically, if you are thinking about doing any teaching here at Western, whether it's to TA or perhaps post-graduation, once you've done your master's or PhD, and you're looking at going into academia or any other academic field, you want to connect with Center for Teaching and Learning. Take a look. All right, so I mentioned they are doing a whole series on generative AI at the moment. Super, super interesting. So if you look under programs, this is a really good way of navigating their website. So recommended programs and resources by role. So I suggest you look at the new teaching assistants and grad students and international and new resident grad students. So if you go there, it'll link to the e-learning series that I mentioned, TA training program, being a teaching assistant, which is a collection of tips and resources. And then if you go to the international, they have programs around communicating in a Canadian classroom, exploring and interviewing careers in teaching, teaching in the Canadian classroom that happen throughout the year. So lots of great support can be found there. All right. Again, reminder that if you have any questions about those resources as you poke around their website, definitely connect with us either via email, drop in to see one of our international student advisors, or connect with the service directly. So in terms of navigating Western accounts, knowing how to navigate these accounts is really crucial for accessing academic resources, managing your finances, and staying informed. So Brightspace is an online learning management system. Different professors do use this tool in different ways. Sometimes professors are uploading complete lectures on there, just the slides. Some courses will have online discussion forums. So it's important to know, again, the expectations from each course and to navigate, to poke around, take some time to really explore the Brightspace landing pages for each one of your courses that is on Brightspace. Not all courses will be. Student Center, as you know, is the portal for managing your academic records and enrolling classes. Your statement of account is there. You can check your grades there, and updating any personal information happens there as well. If you're an international student, of course, you also go to Student Center to request any letters that you might need for, let's say, extending your study permit. My HR, so if you're working at Western, for example, as a TA or RA or work study student, you're going to need to be familiar with the My HR system. So you will find information related to employment, including payroll, benefits, taxes, tax slips at the end of the year. So the biggest one is Brightspace or OWL. So if you and then Olivia will pop into chat the link there for the sort of how-to with OWL. There's a self-guided student course that you can go through if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed or something that's unclear. Again, go through that and also ask your TA or professor if there's anything that is unclear for a particular course. Student Center, you're going to use your username and password, and then you'll see the home page there. So that's different. The difference between Student Center, you'll use the whole sort of username at UWO to log in. When you're navigating My Human Resources, you'll do your Western Student ID or user ID without the at UWO part. So final tips and takeaways before I pass it over to Heidi on the immigration reminders. So one thing we got from Up Your Student, record your lectures. Use a reliable device to record your lectures to reinforce understanding, fill in any gaps in your notes. That way you're not, writing furiously and trying to get everything down. It takes a little bit of the pressure off. Choose your seat wisely. So recommendation is to choose a seat at the front of the class to minimize distractions and try and sit in the same spot or the same general area every class. And then naturally it'll make it easier to make friends because you'll notice people do that. It's just again a norm. People tend to sit in the same general area each class, and so you'll be a familiar face if you do the same. Find a study partner. So partner with classmates who are serious about their studies to share notes, study together, or work alongside each other. Sometimes it's easier to stay focused if you are in a room with other people studying rather than being alone where your comfy bed is right beside you calling your name. So that might be a good strategy for some. Also, it's good to make friends in your classes because there will come a time where maybe you can't make it to class because you've um, come down with a cold or just can't get into bed, and you want to be able to rely on somebody to share their notes with you if you can't get to class, and also be that person for somebody else. Remember that self-doubt is a phase. Questioning your ability to succeed in university is normal. So we like to call it something like imposter syndrome. You feel like you really don't deserve to be there. That line of thinking might sneak into your head like, oh, I fooled them and I got into this great university, but I'm not actually smart enough to be here. That line of thinking is common among students, but remember that it's just a phase, and that you are meant to be here and you can succeed. Also, watch out for stress thinking. So, when you're stressed and overwhelmed, emotions are high, and you tend to focus really on the negatives instead of the positives. Um, and so, there's a saying like um, where your attention goes, your energy flows. And so if you're constantly paying more attention to the negatives or what's going wrong, you'll send too much energy stressing about that. If we focus on the positives and have our energy flow towards the positives, that can be really powerful. And then again, take advantage of all supports and services Western offers. When in doubt, talk to staff, talk to volunteers at Western International about, I'm having trouble with this. Is there anything that might be useful for me to access? Yeah, and at the end of the day, we are here to support and strengthen Western's international community. Um, as I mentioned a couple of times, our international student advisors are here to meet with you either in person or virtually. You'll see information on our website on how to book an appointment. As new students, you're encouraged to drop into a new student check-in appointment any afternoon from 1 to 4 p.m. throughout the month of January, just to meet with an advisor informally and about how they can help you through your time here at Western. I also mentioned the English conversation program. So if you'd like to strengthen your conversational English, get more confident in terms of slang or short forms, or just, yeah, gaining confidence in those conversational English settings, you'll want to sign up for the English conversation program. You'll be matched with a small group and a leader who will meet one-on-one with you, or sorry, not in a small group with you for 8 weeks for the term. So if you're interested in that, the registration is open on our website now. If you're here with any spouses or partners, family members, we encourage them to also get connected with our international community at Western. We host a weekly tea and information session. So every Friday, spouses and partners or families are invited to join together and ask questions and just enjoy some tea and snacks and build that community as you're here at Western. If you are here with a spouse or partner or family member, we're also inviting you to our Families Lunch, which is January 17th, and that information can be found on our ISO schedule. Also mentioned Global Cafe, social events that we offer throughout the year. There's many volunteer opportunities through our office. So make sure that you're checking your UWO email. Up until now, we've been communicating with you on your both personal emails and UWO accounts. Moving forward, as the term has already started, you'll get emails from Western International only through your UWO account. So I know you are bombarded with lots of emails from many different places, but make sure to, at least open our network emails. We send an email every Tuesday throughout the term, reminding you about services that can help you, events coming up, if there's any workshops that might be of interest, social events throughout the year. So make sure you're following us via network email and also social media. What's next? We'll have a Part B webinar all about health and wellness, health insurance, and safety on campus on January 15th. And then the third part of this webinar series is about living in London and adjusting to life at Western. This week, we'll also have, today was day one of our SIN clinics, but if you need a SIN number, we'll also have a Service Canada representative here all day tomorrow, and check our website for details about that. Our new student celebration is January 10th. Lunch for families, as mentioned, is January 17th, and our Global Cafe are happening weekly, Thursdays, 3 to 5 p.m. starting this week. So before I let you go, if you are an international student with a study permit or planning on working in Canada, any immigration reminders are going to be shared by my colleague Heidi next. If you're not, if you're an exchange student, you're welcome to go. But thank you for being here, and definitely reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns after the webinar. All right, with that, I'm going to pass you to Heidi for some important immigration reminders.
Thank you, Francesca, for all the great tips and overview of the great resources on campus. So we're going to shift to immigration information here. Let's see. Don't have control of this. Okay. So we're gonna cover some very basic but also very important immigration topics here about study permit, your TRV, temporary resident visa, or ETA if you come from visa exempt country, working on and off campus, co-op work permit, post-graduation work permit, open work permits for your spouses or common partner, social insurance number, and also our advising services. Okay. So I believe all of you have had this study permit already. So basically the study permit is being issued by IRCC. It authorizes you to study and stay in Canada. And there are some very specific conditions that you can find on your study permit, which you can usually find under conditions or remarks saying that you may accept employment on or off campus. Your study permit, take a look on the expiry date. Make sure you set a reminder in your calendar about the expiry date of your study permit. As we know, this study permit represents your status in Canada, so you want to make sure your study permit always stays valid. It is usually valid for covering your full academic program and plus 90 days. So if you, in the case, if you need to study longer, you can apply for study permit extension from Inside Canada. And the temporary resident visa, which is a shiny sticker in your passport. So this one basically shows that you have met the requirements to be admitted to Canada as a temporary resident. And you need this valid TRV in order to enter. Or if you have left Canada, you need to return to Canada, you do need a valid visa as well, along with your valid study permit. Okay, so make sure 2 documents are valid. So again, similar to your study permit extension, if you do need to get a valid TRV, after you get your new study permit extension, you can always apply for a new TRV from inside Canada, but only after you get your new study permit. For those students who come from visa-exempt countries, you will not see this TRV, but you have this electronic travel authorization, ETA. So this is electronically connected to your passport, and it's valid for up to 5 years. Working on campus. In order to working on campus, you must make sure you meet all the eligibility criteria. So it's not everybody can work on campus, right? You need to make sure you have met all the conditions. So first of all, you must have a valid study permit with the working conditions, right? Make sure you check your study permit that shows you do have the working condition that allows you to work in Canada. And you must be a full-time student unless this is your final academic session, that you can be a part-time student, and that still allows you to work to meet the condition here. And of course, you need a social insurance number from Service Canada. And for working on campus, if you do meet all the eligibility criteria, there's no limit to the number of hours to work on campus. Okay. Working off campus, it's very similar to the eligibility criteria to working on campus. So you have a valid study permit, you maintain your full-time student status, except if this is your final academic session, you can be a part-time student. And your program must be at least 6 months long, leading to a degree, diploma, or certificate, having a social insurance number as well. Okay. For the hours, so working off-campus hours are not counted along with your towards your working on-campus hours. As we mentioned, working on campus is unlimited hours. Working off campus, if you are eligible to work off campus, you can work up to 24 hours per week during the academic year and full-time during scheduled breaks. So my understanding, it seems like at least most of the attendees here today are graduate students. So at Western, graduate students do not have scheduled break in the year. During the academic year, there are 3 terms: winter, summer, and fall. So there are no scheduled breaks for graduate students. But for undergraduate students, summer is considered as a scheduled break, which means you can work full-time, again, as long as you meet the eligibility criteria. Okay. This is where we mentioned you can look for your working conditions on your study permit. So either under conditions or remarks, it may say something like you may accept the employment on the campus or on or off campus. Okay. Co-op work permit. So for some students in certain programs, the work may be a requirement in order to get your degree. So if internship, co-op, practicum, placement, experiential learning, whatever, however it's called, if it is an essential part of your program study, you need to apply for a co-op work permit. And you should be able to get a co-op letter from your department or program. on your co-op work permit, Western University will be indicated as your employer. So it is a closed work permit, which means you can only work for those employers who have been approved by your department or Western University. Oops, did I? Okay. Working in Canada after graduation. So basically this refers to, did I skip one slide? Sorry. Yeah, okay. Working in Canada after graduation. So this basically refers to post-graduation work permit or PGWP. The PGWP is not employer specific. So it is an open work permit, which means you can work anywhere in Canada and the job does not need to be related to a degree. So in order to apply for PGWP, you do need to meet all of these eligibility criteria here. So first of all, you have to have completed your program first, and the program has to be a PGWP eligible program, and itself has to be at least 8 months long. So in our situation at Western, and you have maintained your full-time students as your full-time student status throughout your program, except your final academic session, which you can be a part-time and will not impact your eligibility for PGWP. So that's totally fine for being part-time in your last academic session. And you need to receive a written confirmation. So this letter is actually called a post-graduation work permit letter. So it's a letter to confirm that you have completed your program and your final transcripts from Western. So these two documents are the main documents that you can apply for your PGWP. And the language test results is something quite new, just started in November last year. So for our basically, because we're talking about Western students degree, we're talking about Western degree oriented students here. And so you need to have at least a minimum of English language test result for CLB 7, or if you choose to take a French language test, the result has to be in CLC level 7 as well, as a minimum requirement. And when you apply for your PGWP, you must hold a valid study permit if you are applying for inside Canada, or if you plan to start working right away from inside Canada after you submit the application, you must have this valid study permit when you apply. There are some other eligibility requirements, which I'm not going to go into details here. Again, like I said, we are talking about degree-oriented Western students here. So for your spouse or common law partner, they may be eligible for an open work permit if you hold a valid study permit and you are studying full-time or have proof of enrollment in full-time courses and your program must be in either master or PhD degree program or a professional degree granting program at a university, for example, medicine, dentistry, law, education, or engineering. So basically, when your spouse or common law partner, when they are applying for their open work permit, they need to provide one of the following documents to prove, again, your enrollment in a program of study, which is a valid letter of acceptance or a proof of enrollment letter or transcripts that shows you are currently enrolled in a program. Social insurance number. So if any of you haven't applied for a social insurance number or haven't received your social insurance number, of course, there's this online method that you can, just go to Service Canada website, apply online, and you can see your social insurance number digitally on your Service Canada account platform within 5 business days. You will receive your social insurance number in mail. For social insurance number, because you are temporary resident here in Canada, so it does have an expiry date and it will expire as your study permit, or if you hold a work permit, it expires. Social insurance number is issued by Service Canada, as we have mentioned, and this is very essential for you to receive payment from your employer, and it should be kept confidential. Except it's you're required by some government to show your social insurance number. For example, like you need to show your social insurance number to your employer. So we have talked about applying online for social insurance number. There's of course in person, which is downtown office there. There might be a long lineup. So I encourage you to attend our on-campus Sync clinic. So basically it has been happening today and tomorrow. It serves as first come, first serve. Yep. And this is where exactly we're located. So we're just next to the UC Hill, with this big window, big glass window building here. Yeah. So I will hand it over to Francesca.
All right. Thank you, Heidi. Again, invite you to ask any questions if you have anything outstanding that we haven't covered. I know it was a lot of information in this webinar, but we really want you to have all the information at your fingertips. If you need to review the webinar, at some point later on, it'll be available on our website. But for today, if you have any questions, please don't be shy about dropping them in the Q&A. Otherwise, if something comes to you afterwards, again, you are welcome to email us anytime. Use your drop-in hours in person, book a virtual appointment with an advisor like Heidi. And then we also have an Ask an Advisor virtual drop-ins every Friday. And yeah, there's many ways to connect with us. So if you need anything at all, please know that we're here at Western International to help you navigate. We hope to see you in the Part B webinar January 15th around healthcare, and then later on in the month around, navigating campus and getting connected to the community. So we hope this webinar has been useful for you, and we thank you for tuning in. Please reach out if you ever need us.